right, good morning, everybody. They are working to see if the PowerPoint can pop up. Otherwise, I wrote my answers down, so I'm prepared. So I'm glad I did that last night. So just to kind of review as far as where we've been, we started by looking at just kind of this worldview concept, how people come to the ideas they do. And when we finished that idea or that lesson, we looked at there's really only kind of two religions in the world, religions of works and religions of grace. And we said that biblical Christianity is really the only religion that goes by grace. There we go. Okay. So every other religion falls under this category of religion of works. And 2 weeks ago, we finished our look at Islam, and I think it was pretty clear how it's work-based. You have to do these things, not do those things, and hope that, in Islam's case, Allah is merciful to you so that you can cross the bridge and be saved. We're going to take a look at Hinduism today, and at first, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, it seems very philosophical, it seems very deep, but when you kind of peel away at the layers of the onion, so to speak, you're going to see that it really comes down to works. What I do, what I don't do, and that's going to have an effect on not only this life, but the next life, and on it goes. So that's where we're going to go today here with Hinduism. I can't say it's going to be a super deep look. I'm going to try to get an idea to you as far as like what are some of the main components of Hinduism, like the main teachings, what do they believe about how one is saved and all those kinds of things. So that's where we're going to go. Now, as far as origin goes, one of the things I found is that there really is no firm date as far as the origin of Hinduism. This falls under the category of an Eastern religion. Eastern religions also would include Buddhism and like Sikhism and Taoism and all of those types of religions. I think next week when we look at Buddhism, I have like kind of this tree where you see kind of like the foundation and all the offshoots of these Eastern religions. So Hinduism falls under the category of an Eastern religion. Depending on who you talk to, they might say that it might date all the way back to 3000 BC. That's at least where they say the earliest texts of Hinduism. And then there are those who suggest that it can go back even further to perhaps 8000 or 6000 BC. Again, their timeline for world is different because they don't have a biblical worldview, so that's the dating that they have. But then they also will, some will say that these texts are essentially timeless. There's no beginning or end. They're divine, and so they're timeless. One thing we're going to find is that in Hinduism, there's no like main holy book like the Bible. They do have sacred writings that we'll look at and just kind of give you a heads up as far as what some of those main ones are. But that's really the extent of the origin of Hinduism. If you remember back, was it the first lesson or second lesson we looked at? Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world. Christianity is number 1 yet. Islam is number 2. Hinduism is number 3. I think, if I recall, around 15% of the world's religious population. So there's a lot of different, I would say, break-offs of Hinduism, different sects. I think I found there's like 4 main ones. But there's a lot of different break-offs, and they might have different practices and things like that that can make it sort of seem like they're different religions altogether. And so the big thing we're going to do today is just look at what are the main common beliefs that all Hindus seem to hold and to follow. Okay? So as I said, there's several distinct groups of Hindus, and they can differ substantially in theory and in practice. And as I had just referenced, they can seem so different that they're essentially different religions altogether. So some of the main teachings of Hinduism we're going to look at today are what's their version of God. Brahma is generally the name they use. There's the reincarnation there's karma, those types of things, and then how do they produce good karma, avoid bad stuff. Those are kind of the main things we're going to look at. I have a quote here from a guy named Gene Veith. I believe he's a Missouri Synod seminary prof or something along those lines. But he says this in his book, The Spirituality of the Cross. As you read this, you might be like, what in the world did I just read? Okay? But we're going to highlight some things and then essentially break down some of these phrases as we go about our look here at Hinduism. Anybody willing to read this quote?
Hindus believe that the physical world is an evil illusion from which we must escape. The objective universe is not real. The world of appearance is described as a spell cast by a demon to deceive and entrap human beings who are now entangled in unreality. Human beings perceive differences in things. Actuality, reality is all one, a seamless fabric in which nature, human beings, and God are identical. Salvation, in this view, is to escape the world of mere appearances in which things are different and separate from each other, to merge into the cosmic unity.
So as I said, you might read that and be like, what in the world did I just read? Okay? So this is where I say, when you look at Hinduism on the surface, it seems very philosophical, and you get that sense here with this quote. Some of the things if you want to underline these things in your block quote, that's fine, but things that just kind of stick out, that the world is an evil illusion, okay? And tied to that is that the objective universe is not real. So basically what they're saying is if you believe this world is real, you're stuck in this illusion, all right? You're living in what they say is non-reality. My question would be like, what do you mean by that? Right? Because the people we interact with, the things that we experience, touch and see and all, those are like, is that what you're saying? Like that's not real, or is it deeper than that? I'd be curious to get a little bit of a deeper understanding. Other things that stick out here is if you believe this world is real, you are basically have a spell cast on you by a demon, and you've been entrapped, so that it's to entrap human beings who are now entangled in this concept of unreality. And I'll break this down a little bit as we go. Human beings perceive differences, but actually it says reality is all one, a seamless fabric in nature. Human beings and God are identical. This is pantheism. Okay, are you familiar with pantheism? So pantheism is this concept that all or everything is God. So when you understand that they're a pantheistic religion, maybe this starts to make a little bit more sense as far as I understand why they're saying what they're saying. Maybe you don't understand exactly what they mean, but you understand why they're saying what they're saying. So if God and everything is God, then it makes sense that everything is one. It's a seamless fabric. And so how do you get out of this illusion? Well, you have to escape this world and then merge into the cosmic unity. Okay? So if you view this world as real, you're living in unreality. You've got to get out of that unreality to become one with the God. Okay? It's a very different concept than Christianity. But as I said, when you peel away the layers of the onion, so to speak, when it comes right down to it, it's a work-based religion. And we're going to see that as we go along. So don't let this confuse you or fool you. All right? At its core, this is a work-based religion. So just some things that stick out here as far as Hinduism go. By the way, this image that you see here, this is like the sacred Om. It's like if you know the meditative yoga meditation thing, the sacred Om, that apparently is the letter for Om. As we just talked about, there's a fondness for philosophic speculation, and I have some footnotes there that kind of help explain some of the things that we're talking about. So as far as this philosophic speculation goes, your footnote just talks about this is an intuitive thing, this philosophic speculation. It's what you feel to be true even though you can't prove it. So it's insight into the nature of the absolute or divine. It's theoretical as opposed to demonstrable. So it's like, kind of like what you feel, like, you know, I think this, or I feel it's like that, even though you can't prove it to be true. Earthly life is an illusion. And part of that is they say there's more to reality than what we see. Almost a little bit, you ever like learned of Gnosticism? Like the Greek word for knowledge, gnosko, Gnosticism. This was addressed, I believe, like in John's epistles. Like there's this deeper knowledge you have to attain to like truly understand and like know like what God wants from you, all this kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of this Gnostic thing going on here. They say that your physical bodies are nothing more than energy fields. I tried to like look this up and understand what this means. What I found is that essentially like your body can like give off this negative energy type thing. And you've got to change the negative energy into like this positive good energy. So again, it's more like philosophical, intuitive type stuff. It's also very abstract as far as all of these things go. And so the ideas and sense are beyond logic, which fits into the intuitive thing we talked about. It's based off of more feeling than demonstrable facts and proof. I'm not an artist by any stretch. I can barely draw a stick figure. But I'm fairly certain that abstract art is like stuff that just gets like blotted on like a canvas, right? And I think of like the shows in the past, like someone's seen a psychologist and they're like, what does this make you think of? A cow. And somebody else says a cloud, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's very abstract. There's not a lot of like details that you can really like hone in on. It's also got a lot of mysticism, this concept of seeking perfection with your emotions. And ultimately you want to become one or absorb with the ultimate God. And that is attained through what they say is contemplation and self-surrender. So just again, understanding contemplation, when we usually think of the word contemplation, we're thinking or talking about like, well, I'm going to think about something, right? I'm contemplating doing this, so I'm thinking about it. But their concept of contemplation, it's going far beyond normal thought. Like, again, it's this philosophic stuff, this deeper understanding, this deeper thought process. And that's going to make sense as you understand, like, again, what is it going to take for them to ultimately reach their goal? You've got to go beyond your thoughts. You've got to go beyond this world, this deeper knowledge or understanding of something. And we're going to find out what that is coming up. Everybody still following along? Now, you're also in Hinduism not necessarily, it's based on laws of nature. Okay. When you understand the reincarnation concept, time for them is also cyclical. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So as I said, not based on a holy book. Time is cyclical.
So if it's not based on a holy book, where do they get the teachings from? Like, what was the source that they go?
That is a question I don't necessarily have the answer to. Again, like they say, their texts, the sacred texts, like go back way back. So they do have like gurus and things like that. So is it some type of guru? Buddhism's a little bit more clear as far as like where their teachings come from. Hinduism is very much more just kind of like nebulous, if you want, like hard to understand. So I don't really have a clear answer on that. As I said a little bit prematurely, they're not progressing to a final end. There is a goal that they want to reach, but it takes a long time to get there. It's not like, all right, you die and then you're in heaven or hell. Okay? So we're going to see you die and then you get reincarnated and then you live again, and we'll look at this coming up. So there's no like one final one life, one death, one judgment. The universe is recreated. Now, this isn't, from my understanding, where, okay, there's reincarnation, and like the world is reincarnating like as regularly as human beings are. What I understand is they say this is not the first universe that has existed, and it's not going to be the last universe that exists. And so the universe itself kind of recreates itself. When they would say this universe came to be, maybe the 10,000 years ago type mindset, I'm not sure. All right, but they say that this universe is not the first, nor is it the last. Related to that now, all right, so the universe is recreated. Human beings are reincarnated as well. And so how does a person become a living person? Well, they say these souls from the last universe get put into bodies that are here today. This is called transmigration, where your soul goes from one physical being to another. I could spend a lot more time talking about the reincarnation concept. There's a number of quotes that exist. It seems as if you get reincarnated into something in its infancy stage. All right, and it doesn't have to just be a human being. It can be a plant. It can be an animal, things like that.
So, souls being created, or is the final end when all souls finally are achieved nirvana?
That I'm not clear either. It would stand to reason that there would be new souls created, but you live, you die, and then your soul is just, it's called like the astral plane or something like that. And your soul is just in this astral plane, and then it eventually gets put into a new human body or different physical form. So I'm not exactly clear, like, all right, how do new souls get created? What's the process for that? I'd have to look into that more. But I see the confusing look on your face, and it's confusing to me too. So what is the ultimate goal? And this kind of gets into what we were looking at before here in that quote. The goal is to become aware of the God within you and to merge with the divine. So this is where that last sentence on the quote was to escape the world of mere appearances and to merge into the cosmic unity. This becoming aware of the God within you is really getting out of that illusion. So the contemplative thing we talked about, the intuition thing we just talked about, how do you become aware of the God within you? You do that by understanding this world is not real, it's an illusion, all that kind of stuff. All right? And I've got a little chart here coming up that's going to help us see what they think or the process is or what you need to do. They will also say that the source of all evil is your ignorance of your spiritual God or nature. So by you not understanding who you really are, by you not seeking or finding your inner God, that is really the source of all evil, because now you're not one with the divine. You're your own individual self, selfish, whatever you want to say.
It's a religion that very much appeals to narcissism.
Good. But at the same time, when we look at one of the things on the next part here, I don't know if they would say that.
I didn't know that Trump was a Hindu.
Oh, we'll not go there. All right, so here's kind of a breakdown. Here's just kind of an image. Some of the imagery within Hinduism is quite interesting. But here's the concept of pantheism. You are the all or everything is God. Okay? Here's another image that'll pop up here. But I'm going to start from actually the bottom and work my way to the top. Okay? So you see there's non-reality. All right? And if you're living in non-reality, they say you're living in ignorance. So what is non-reality? Again, the physical world is an illusion. All right, if you believe this physical world is real, you're living in non-reality. All right, so you're bound to this illusion. Thinking and feeling, they say, causes suffering. Again, my question would be, like, what kind of thinking and feeling? I don't know how your brain doesn't think. So what types of thoughts would it be that cause suffering? And then as far as feeling goes, what kind of feelings are we talking about here? Right, because we feel things, like if I stub my toe, I feel pain. Right, now we would say if I stub my toe and I say a bad word, that's a sinful thing to do, right? But like if I feel pain, is that problematic? Or is it the feeling, the selfish desires that I would really need to ask a practicing Hindu, what does that mean?
Not a question, or just a comment. That sounds to me like I guess you could say, unenlightened isn't the right word, unrevealed, and a way of considering original sin that is not mediated by God's revelation. You're recognizing, like, what's universal? Thinking and feeling. Every person ever with a working frontal lobe, whatever part of your brain has thought and felt.
Right.
Suffering is inherent to human nature. Therefore, you connect the two, but it's kind of a recognition. It seems to me like it could be kind of a recognition of original sin, just not mediated by the actual scriptural doctrine.
Or more just the reality that there's a natural knowledge of God? Exactly. Yeah. I can agree with that. And then karma, they say, is what holds you to the illusion, and we'll just look at karma. I think we're probably familiar with the concept of karma, but we'll talk about it anyways. So this would be mostly the bad karma you do, right? Holds you to this illusion. So what is the ultimate goal? Well, you want to transcend that, get out of that non-reality, and get into what they call reality. And what is reality? It's Brahma, which we'll talk about what that is. And here's where the narcissist thing, I think they would say no. Once you become reality, they say you become this impersonal spiritual cosmos. Like, and related to that, you've now absorbed into the one, and then you lose your personal identity, they say. So you're no longer your own personal self, you're just kind of like one with everything. So I can completely understand why you'd say, well, this sounds narcissistic, but you're losing that personal identity and just like merging with everything else. Like you're blending in. I don't know if that's a better way of saying it. So all of this, they say, will give you peace and bliss. Yep.
This just sounds like modern philosophy, like post-Kant philosophy.
It is a very philosophical thing. But when you, again, look at what does it take to get out of non-reality and into reality, what does it take to become one with their God or right with their God? It's all work-based, what I do or don't do.
Once you are one with the universe, you achieve reality, can you fall back into unreality? Or is your soul, one with God forever, like through all the reincarnations?
Short answer, you can't. And you can't fall back. And we'll look at why that is coming up here when we look at a key part of Hinduism. So just hold your thought on that, okay? All right, so what is Brahma? Okay, Brahma is like kind of the ultimate reality, they call it. It's the divine you want to merge with, and this exists beyond the everyday world. If I had time, there was like this Hindu creation story video that I had. If I recall it correctly, and we'll see that they have different types of gods in Hinduism. I think it's Anantashesh is coiled up, and then you have Vishnu sitting within the coils of Anantashesh. And out of Vishnu's belly button, this flower sprouts. And then in the flower is Brahma. And Brahma is the one who is given the task of creating the world. And there's some, I would say, slight similarities to the Hindu creation account and the biblical creation account as far as like kind of like things were made out of nothing and all this kind of stuff. And he was told to create this and it happened. So Brahma is this creator. And so that's kind of the image there sitting in the flower type thing. There's like this, I don't know what, there's like an animal type thing. I don't know if it's a fox or something. I don't know if you can tell. One of my students noticed it. I didn't even see it. Like here's the face, and it's like eating its own tail type thing. But I think it's just showing like all or everything is one. You've got like the greenery, and like everything is like one type concept here. All right, so Brahma's this is who you want to merge with. The entirety of creation is divine Brahma. It's all reality, or it's all God, I guess. So again, the goal is for you to become a God, but everything else is God too. So Brahma is this impersonal power. There's not really a whole lot known about. It's not like the God of the Bible where we have physical attributes or characteristics or specific attributes or characteristic of God revealed to us. It's just this impersonal power that's beyond description. So again, how do you merge with Brahma? You've got to find your inner God. And again, I have a footnote there. The inner God is called Atman. This is essentially the closest thing to the soul that there is in Hinduism. All right, your Atman. They say it's who you really are, but it's not like a physical body. So it's essentially like their version of the soul, and this is what transmigrates into all of these different physical forms. But you got to find that in order to merge with God. Brahma. Everybody good so far? So, yeah, go ahead.
So is Brahma the demon that casts the spell of the illusion, or where does that come from?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not completely clear on what demon that is or if there's a specific demon. I'd have to, again, look into that a little bit more. But is that part of the thinking and feeling that causes evil too?
Where does the illusion they're trapped in come from?
Like who determines that, you're saying? Or
Like we have the creation myth here, right? And so Brahma created all that exists. Is he the one that created the illusion that we're trapped in, or is there someone else who's going to come along and create the illusion that we're trapped in?
That's a great question. And I do not know the answer to that. That's a question that I would have to ask a practicing Hindu, right? Like, so you say this is an illusion. Who created it? Because if Brahma's the creator God, was Brahma the one who, that's a great question. I just don't know the answer to it. Yep.
There's an animal called the Brahma bull. Is there some connection between what we're talking about and that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Makes me think of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but no, I don't know if there's a connection there or not. There is in Hinduism, like cows are sacred, but I don't know if there's a connection there or not. Yeah. Not in the sense that Christianity has a heaven or a hell.
It's not your battery.
Not. You're good. Not in the sense of Christianity. We'll talk about what their version of a heaven, I guess you would say, is. There really isn't like a hell that I'm aware of. Basically, not reaching their version of reality is like, I suppose, some sense of judgment. but we'll get into a little bit, maybe that'll help answer your question. All right, so how does this Atman achieve Brahma? The big thing here, and I don't know if this gets into, can you fall back into, if you reach this, can you fall back? This is where I'm going to say no. Your soul is trapped in what's called samsara, and that's essentially the wheel or circle of life. And so this is where you endure many reincarnations. I don't know how well you can see this image, but it's very busy. I think it seems to depict all the different lives and reincarnations that people can live based on this samsara. They say you can go through thousands of reincarnations, which to me sounds incredibly depressing. So your soul will move from one being to another after you die. So the ultimate goal of Hinduism is to bring this samsara, this cycle of life, to an end. So here's another depiction of samsara, apparently. So how do you bring this samsara to an end? Well, it's all about your karma. So you need to overcome karma, especially the bad karma, to escape samsara. It gets a little sing-songy as we go along. I've got this sing-songy thing that we'll have here coming up. All right, so the bad karma you do is obviously going to affect how you're reincarnated. And the good karma you do is going to make you be reincarnated into something better. So not too surprising. So it determines how you will be reincarnated. Every action, I think, again, we're familiar with karma, right? Every action has a direct consequence. So your good actions will lead to a better consequence or rebirth. Bad actions are a poorer consequence and rebirth. I would make the argument that karma is not necessarily real from a biblical point of view. A lot of times, like when something bad happens to somebody, oh, it's just karma. You know, I'm just getting what I deserve for what I did. But more often than not, the bad thing that happens to you has no direct correlation to the bad thing you did previously. Now, if you punch somebody in the face and you get punched back, maybe, right? But like, if you had this bad situation happen and it's because you said something bad to somebody 20 years ago, people will say, well, that's karma. But there's no correlation or connection to it whatsoever. So this is just kind of this internal thought we have. Like if something bad happens to me, well, then it's because of something bad that I did. All right, but they say the bad stuff you do is going to be a poor rebirth, good stuff, better rebirth. So I don't know what you got to do to become a cockroach in Hinduism, but it's got to be pretty bad. So every thought, every word, every deed affects this life and the next. And again, I think we're fairly familiar with this. And then karma from your previous life is what is the reason for the bad things in your current life. Now, I'm unclear on whether this is something that, so like you have like, say you're poor, okay? And when you look at like kind of their levels of like how you improve your life, there seems to be a lot that has to do with power and wealth. So the more powerful and wealthy you are, the seemingly better life you have. So one of the lowest levels that they say you want to avoid is, I forget the term of it, but like you're basically like a toilet cleaner type person, like you've really done something bad. And the question I have though, and I forget if this was in our Buddhism discussion or Hinduism discussion, it might have been Buddhism. Students who are from China, for example, say, you don't remember what you did in your previous life that led to the life you currently live. Like there's something where you can't like remember a past life. So I'm gonna guess Hinduism is somewhat similar to that. So if you're in a relatively poor state in this life, you're probably thinking, well, it's just something I must have done bad in my previous life. What it was, I can't remember, I don't know, but it's something I did bad.
How does someone know where they are on this karma spectrum from bad to good?
So they have a caste system. It just depends on like what, I have like a basic, I don't have it on this one, but like a basic kind of breakdown of like a caste system. And this is where I'm saying it often depends on power and wealth. So they say it's about becoming one with the divine, but like the highest level is like a priest, some type of like wise person.
That's Brahman.
And that's where you've merged, right? But then like the second level is like a king or something like that, or some type of leader. Then it's like a commoner landowner type, and then it's like a servant, and then it's like the toilet cleaner. So there is a caste system, and it depends on, I think, on your family, like what your family situation is, like what level your family's at, and all those types of things. That gives them an idea of where they might stand.
So if you're in a lower caste level, your goal is to be reincarnated to a higher level. So how do you know if you've done enough good things to attain that?
You don't. Right? You don't. Which is why they say it takes thousands of reincarnations. This is a depressing thing. Like, I find this to be very depressing. Because when will you ever know if you've done enough? And when will you ever know if you've reached the level you need to reach? So, if you're doing bad stuff, how do you improve your karma? Well, there's something called the Dharma. You want to follow Dharma for good karma. Okay? I'm telling you, it's sing-songy. But Dharma, okay? Dharma is nothing more than like a code of conduct for how to live. It's not necessarily like a holy book type thing, but if you're struggling to figure out like what are the good things I need to do, what are the bad things I need to avoid, you can follow the Dharma. And here's where gurus come into play. If you're struggling with that, you can go to a guru who can help you and guide you and all those types of things as well. All right, but there's specific things that help you out with this. The purpose of Dharma, again, to produce good karma and to also help you attain a union of your soul, your Atman, with Brahma through these reincarnations. And so as you go through this, as you follow the Dharma, it is meant to give you peace and tranquility. Probably because it's helping you say, all right, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, like I'm feeling better about what I'm doing, I'm hopefully attaining my goal, doing good karma, all of those things.
If you're currently a cockroach or a dog or something, how do they increase their good karma?
That I don't know. And a lot of these things are questions I'd have to ask a practicing Hindu. All right, so if this is your state in life, how do you improve it, right?
Connection to their family, so their earthly family. Like we want our children to know Jesus, we want our grandchildren to know Jesus, so we see them in heaven. So if you're just constantly on this cycle, do you get a new family? Do you care about that? You know, I'm sure they love their family, but do they have any, you know, maybe I'm not asking it right, but.
Yes, I think related to that, Hinduism is very much like a non-violent religion. And part of that, and I would have this quote up for my class and they would sort of laugh at it, but Like part of them, like not, like taking care of nature and stuff was in essence to sort of protect their family. Because they say, like, I don't know if you remember years ago, there was a Kleenex commercial. And it was like this Hindu or Buddhist monk or something like that. And there was like a spider on the sidewalk and they put the spider back in the tree. There was like a turtle upside down and he flipped the turtle back over. Anybody ringing a bell to anybody? And so he blows his nose and then reads the box that says 99.9% of germs like killed. And he screams like a shriek. Well, it's part of that is because there's a quote that we would read in my class that says you don't know if like this bug you're killing, for example, is a future family member. So I think there is a care and concern about family. Like you want them to like reach the ultimate goal. So I don't know if that helps at all, but like I don't see or anticipate there being like this like coldness or anything like that.
So I work with a couple people who really are this religion, and they are extremely polite and kind, and are always trying to send out good karma. But this is actually one of the ways you can talk about Christianity, because they're always trying to do something good to attain, and they're always worried because you don't know what you don't know. So this is actually a really good place to talk about. In our religion, Jesus forgives you and that kind of thing. So this is actually a really interesting way to talk about it. But I guess the way they describe that second self is you're all part of God, but you don't recognize yourself as you're created as somebody, and it's not until you get that consciousness that you actually see, oh, I am part of God, and then I am created. That's there in a nutshell what they say. Again, I don't know, but it helps kind of see their perspective a little bit better.
And a lot of the stuff I'm sharing are just kind of like key things of Hinduism, right? But when it really comes down to it, if you have a connection or some type of interaction with them, how do you help them to see like there is confidence, there is certainty, especially in Jesus, right? And we'll again look at some of the things like what do they say about different religions, but again, like they're trying, like they want to be one with God, but like there's never any confidence or certainty that they're doing what they need to be doing. And that's the problem with work-based religions. Like you just never have any certainty or confidence. If you violate the Dharma, what do? You got to increase your devotion. There's a number of different things. These are some staples of Hinduism. Meditation is a big one. And within meditation, you can chant mantras, which are sounds and words to help with concentration. So think of like the sacred Om. You want to try and recognize your inner demons and release them. Get rid of the bad stuff, all right? Also part of that is yoga, okay? Meditation and yoga. Yoga, from what I have found and understand, is originated from Hinduism. They would say that like the way that Americans, for example, do yoga is not yoga. You cannot separate the physical component from the meditative, spiritual component, which is why you have some Christians who say we should never do yoga. Now, can you do yoga without the meditative parts? Yes. There's physical, obviously, activity. I should probably do it because I'm not very flexible, but I just don't feel like doing it, so I'm not going to. Right, but there is good physical benefits to it, but you got to be careful, right, that the spiritual Hinduism type components, the meditative aspects, you're not falling into that stuff, right? But that's a big thing to do. And then chant stortas, which are sacred prayers. So a lot of devotion things, spiritual, mental, thinking activities that they do to help increase their devotion and improve their dharma so that they have better karma. So in the end, what is the goal? We said there's not one main final goal, like one life, one death, and one judgment. All right, the main goal is to reach what is called moksha, which is liberation. This is very similar, or quite similar to Buddhism, which is nirvana. So it's reaching moksha, a liberated state. And so think about that chart we had on the second page, I think it was. You've transcended non-reality, and now you've made it into reality, okay? So you've replaced your ignorance now with wisdom. You've found and identified your inner God. And now that inner God has become one with the divine. All right, so you've reunited. Again, you're released from samsara. So here's where I say, I don't believe you can go backwards. So once you've reached this state, you've gotten out of that samsara, that wheel of life, and you've been released from the law of karma. Now, again, does this mean like if you do bad stuff, or can you do bad stuff? I don't know. If you do something bad, like it must not matter. So again, those are questions I would be curious to ask a practicing Hindu. So you've reunited with Brahma. You've escaped the illusion. And then you've been absorbed into reality. You're now one with God. In essence, you now are God yourself. Everybody good on that? So the next part here is just the link between dharma, karma, moksha, and samsara. Here's where it gets a little rhymey and sing-songy. Okay? I think my students enjoyed like being able to remember it like this. So here's how it goes. Good dharma equals good karma, which releases from samsara and results in moksha. So again, you see all the philosophical things of Hinduism. You peel away at those layers of the onion, and when you get right to it, the good things you do, right, the dharma you follow is going to produce good actions, and those good actions are going to get you out of that cycle of life and make you one with God. Now, again, within Hinduism, there's like no, like Brahma isn't necessarily a very personal God. There's abstract things within it, but they do have some gods, I would say more than some gods within Hinduism. And just want to talk about that a little bit here. Here's an image just depicting all the different types of gods or god figures within Hinduism. The Vedas, which we'll talk about coming up here, say that God is one. Men, humans call him by various names. And they say that all these gods are expressions of Brahma. So in reality, then, you can have millions of gods. All right, and I'll just kind of give you some main ones that are there. Also, part of this, they're called avatars of Vishnu. So Vishnu was the one from whom Brahma was sitting on the flower from on the belly button. Okay, so these avatars of Brahma, so manifestations of these gods, or of Vishnu, I should say. So one of the big ones is Shiva, and I don't have this on here. I'm just if you want to jot any of this down, feel free, but this is more just informational. Shiva is a destroyer of ignorance god, a protector of the universe, a giver of knowledge, purity, and peace. This one is often referred to as the three-eyed Lord. So if you notice, there's this eye on the forehead. Pretty much every god in Hinduism has that eye on the forehead. And this is where the red dot that Hindus put on their forehead tends to come from. It's called a bindi. And they believe that it can give them wisdom and insight. It's ornamental, it's cultural. It can also symbolize loyalty with a wife to her husband, things like that too. But it's related to this third eye on these gods that give you insight, wisdom, and deep understanding of things. So that Shiva. Ganesha is a remover of obstacles. Apparently has a delightful sense of humor. Vishnu is one of the main ones, a preserver, protector god. When the world is threatened with evil, chaos, and destructive forces, Vishnu is the god you can go to. There is some reasons for the things in the hands. My understanding is the shell, that's where the sacred Om sound comes from. The flower, I believe, is a symbol of purity. The scepter in the hand, from what I read, it's something that you can get hit with to remove your ego. And then this disc type thing is something that can cut enemies in half. So that's Vishnu. Krishna is another god, an avatar, a manifestation of Vishnu, a god of compassion, tenderness, and love. And then another big one is Rama, a model of reason, right action, desirable virtues, the most ideal man. Nice hair. Okay. So back to the part on the gods, all right? So because of all of this, there are no false gods in Hinduism as long as your prayer to that God is sincere. So you could believe in Jesus, you could believe in Allah, you could believe in Buddha, you could believe in the sun, moon, and stars. It doesn't matter. As long as your worship is sincere, you're good. So what about Jesus in Hinduism? What do they believe or teach about Jesus? Well, Jesus, they believe, could be a divine incarnation of Vishnu, perhaps an avatar, a manifestation. All right, took this idea that they can take on a form of Vishnu and all that kind of stuff. They claim that he believed in reincarnation. I don't know if that has to do with like the fact that they talk about resurrection, like coming back to life. But they claim that Jesus believed in reincarnation. As you might imagine, though, he is not God and he is not Savior. Again, they acknowledge that Jesus was real, but not God and not Savior. And then they say the miracles of Jesus are identical to the powers attributed to some of the great Hindu masters that they've had. So again, what has to happen in order for religions to legitimize themselves, they have to discredit Jesus as God and Savior. And so they have to somehow say, well, the miracles they're not that big a deal. Our people can do those too. Sort of like Pharaoh with Moses, right? As Moses was standing before. The only difference between Pharaoh's magicians and Moses was those magicians of Pharaoh couldn't change those things back to what they were, right? Remember that the devil can also walk around as an angel of the light. And then finally, there's sacred writings. The big ones are known as the Vedas. And so these are things that were passed down orally from centuries on before being written down. These are the oldest scriptures or holy writings that they have. The Rig Veda, maybe you've heard of that before. That is the oldest of them all, the most sacred of all of them. And basically what is included in all this are thousands of songs or hymns, prayers, philosophical texts, things like that, that people can go to. Another big writing is something called an Upanishad. These are question and answers from sages to students, things like that. They also include some philosophical teachings about Brahma and also help with the struggle to achieve moksha. So here's one example of what an Upanishad book would be. And then one more example here. So again, when you look at this compared to Christianity, there's no Jesus. Or there is a Jesus who's not God and Savior, right? And when it comes down to how one becomes right with God and how one is saved, it's based on the good things you do and the bad things you avoid. It's all about works and what I have to do to achieve salvation myself.
It seems to me that the real appeal of this is that you really can't get it wrong. You know, every answer is right. The worst it gets is, you know, life now. There's no real hell. I mean, even if you get incarnated into a cockroach, I mean, how much does a cockroach really suffer? So, you know, you get as many do-overs as you want.
And I think that's fair. Yeah, there really is no hell, right? So, you know, maybe the hell that you suffer is just the constant reincarnations and not knowing when it's going to end. But imagine though just how much that weighs down on a person and how much of a burden that must be to the soul. And me just thinking about it, I just feel depressed and anxiety ridden because of just like, when is it ever going to end? Like, how do I know if I'm doing enough? And again, there's your opportunity to say it's already been done for you, right? Jesus has done it for you. Because I think deep down, everybody knows that they're not good enough to meet up to God and His standards. And so if we can show them Jesus, let's do it.